What is up, y'all? We're here for another episode of Believe in Kentucky, live streaming once again. Jalen Whitlow, former UK quarterback. We held it down last week, man. How you doing? Oh, I think you
Weeks
muted, man.
ago,
There you go.
weeks ago, man. Not quite Aaron Gershon, but it was good.
You're funny,
We
man. You're
we got
funny.
the well traveled Aaron Gershon back for the Cats Paws. Been watching his beloved Yankees in multiple venues across this country. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm exhausted, but it's good. It's good to be back in Lex for like 5 days before I go up to Toronto and cover some basketball. But can't complain, man. It's been a fun summer, and we got some crossover season in July. It's different, but it's all right for a couple weeks.
Exactly. Speaking of Toronto, we got a former Cat on here. Won a couple national championships, the '96 squad and '98 squad. Made some documentaries. I shortchanged him about that right before we started recording. He's on the pregame show with Buzz Baker on UK Sports Network, talking about none other than Cameron Mills. We bring him on here with us. Cam, how you doing, sir?
Fellas, doing well. How are y'all?
Can't
Vinny,
complain.
listen, I'm going to tell you, this is late for me. 8:30 is my bedtime since I got married. So the sacrifice that I am making for you tonight,
Man,
I mean, I should be right. I should be right there in bed, at least half conscious, if not fully or unconscious at this point.
I'm gonna let these fellas just each ask one question, and then we're done, man. That's it. Just a couple quick ones. I owe you again. On top of I appreciate you.
Hey man, I was honored to have you and Terry and Michelle and Tina and Johnny and all you gang, just help out with what 7 years of that podcast or radio show and then website. I mean, I had to have content, and I got such good content from you all. So
You
always
you let
appreciate what you all did.
you let me write multiple articles. You let me cover multiple games, and you had no regrets. Somehow you let me
No.
keep coming back, man. Unbelievable.
No, listen, I think that was the best thing about it. When I told everybody, it's like you came in, you're a Cowboys fan. You're not just, I mean, you're, so we shared that. And like, you wanted to write about NFL sometimes, like, write about it. I don't care. Write about whatever you want to write about. I mean, we had like, we even had some like political stuff. People wanted to, okay, all right, just, be fair. But yeah, I don't, write whatever you want, whatever's on your heart, man, get it out.
Yeah, man. You gave us free reign, and we try to do you proud, man.
Y'all
Sure
did.
do.
Y'all, it was fun while it lasted, but they got married and thought, man, I don't have time for it anymore.
Hey, I know how that is, man.
Yeah.
Well, we get you on here, man. Like we talked about, we got basketball games next week. Cats
Yep.
go to Toronto. Aaron is about to hit the road again, and
I'm
you
jealous,
travel.
Aaron. I figured they'd take the network crew, and I think they're taking Jack and Tom, but they're not taking the secondary crew. Buzz and I have to stay here. They're not even putting us on air. So
Well,
Buzz and I are we'll have to get on the phone and argue together without anyone listening to it.
well, I'll only be at the first two, but yeah, I am excited to see this team a little bit.
I am too. I'm hoping I get to go to practice tomorrow and watch them and see how they're gelling, because I'm definitely. I guess they'll be on TV, right? The Canada game's gonna be on TV.
They still haven't. I know Sportsnet, which is Canadian based, has the rights, and it hasn't quite come out how people are going to be able to watch it back home here in the States. But it better be, because can you imagine? We see what happens on Twitter when ESPN delays the start of the game by 10 minutes to play some volleyball or soccer game. Can you imagine if you can't watch it at all? I mean,
yeah, especially this year with all the consternation over whether or not he was going to have more than five players right now. And now it's like, all right, well, let's see what we got. What we say earlier, Vinny, we got 11 now. Yeah. 11 with 2 open spots. So everybody's, I'm sure, just like I am, dying to see, all right, what do they look like right now? So
I don't want to put words in Jalen's mouth, but we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, Cam. And Jalen, you basically said that the hunger and desire that this team should have may override the inexperience that they have. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to get your thoughts and see what Cam thinks.
That, man, I just dream to get guys who have been.
Oh, you're coming in and out, man.
Hey, Jalen, you're cutting in and out, man. Vinny, tell me, put words in his mouth while he's figuring it out. Tell me what you thought what he said.
It was basically, I think it was last week. He said that, you know, the doubts. He said the guys coming in already have kind of seen some negative things from the past couple of years. The fans kind of panicking about the roster. Some of this maybe have already bled over to this team. And if you get back in, Jay, let me know. When he says this team,
Y'all got me?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I think, you know, a lot of these guys have been counted out, man, and doubted. I think you may get the hungriest team you've had in a while.
Well,
I think that's a coach's dream.
Yes, Jalen. I mean, you'd know that, and not that Vinny and Aaron y'all wouldn't, but Jalen, you know, I mean, there's nothing more powerful than a team with a chip on their shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they'll do whatever you ask. They'll run through a brick wall. They'll put all their egos to the side. So if that is what's happened, and it's funny, right? I mean, I get the whole portal thing that we had. You know, Oscar, is he going to come back? You know, who's going to transfer? Who's going to stay? Who's going to take their 8th year of eligibility and play some more as an 8th year senior? Who's going to do that? And at the same, and everybody's worried. At the same time, it's like, I get that, but we got literally the number 1 through 4 of the top 10 players in this recruiting class. And then all 5 of them are in the top 22, because Reed's, I think, last consensus was sitting at 22. It's like, they're just forgotten about. You know, it's like, this used to be how it always was. Like Cal's first 10 years here, this is what it was. It was freshmen, nothing but freshmen. And now we got 7 of them. And the cool thing about this year's team is we got 7 guys that are going to learn by fire, and hopefully learn quickly, and hopefully be able to do what most of Cal's teams, if not all of them, have honestly been able to do, whether they've succeeded at our level of expectation or not, which is put their egos aside and say, I'd rather be a winning team than a winning player, if that makes sense. I'd rather up our team status than my status. If Cal can get these guys to do that, and then you add Trey coming in from West Virginia, and you add and then Antonio coming back. I mean, Vinny and I were talking earlier. I think Antonio coming back, I know everyone's excited about it. I think other than Oscar coming back, I'd rather have Antonio back than just about anybody from last year's team. You know, the guys that left for whatever reason, you know, whether they had to or whether they're exploring the NBA. I mean, Antonio at one point he was our leading 3-point shooter.
He was all year. Yep.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Perfect. So
Yep.
That's what we complain about all year, is that every year, right? We don't have shooting. Well, we know with Antonio, we don't just have shooting, we've got scoring. So, I mean, at any point, and now even Cal said this last week, or maybe it was this week, but Cal was talking about how Antonio in these practices this past few weeks, he doesn't look like he did last year. And look, Cal's always saying that. I get it, but it's important. And Jalen, you'll know this as well. That stretch from freshman to sophomore year, right? Now, for Antonio, that's not what it is. This is like his 6-year senior year or whatever it is. But this is his 2nd year at Kentucky. And when you go in your first year, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Oscar Tshiebwe. I don't care if you're Jamal Mashburn. You come in and you're wide-eyed, and you just, you know, you're playing in a cavernous arena, and you've got one of the toughest schedules of the year. And, you know, you got Kansas at home or Kansas in their barn. And then, I mean, you've just got all the pressure that the UK fans, as y'all indicate, are already placing on this team. And Jalen, maybe you're right. Maybe they're forgetting about it. But, you know, having someone like Antonio be able to be in the game, maybe not starting, probably starting. I hope he's starting, but playing high minutes, and then being able to be that calming presence. Because if we go back to 2012, Darius Miller had a team full of freshmen, and he was the lone senior, wasn't the star, but the lone senior that I think what we all assume is, what I always assumed was, there's the leadership, right? So Antonio's got to be the leadership, right? Because these freshmen, good as they're going to be, they can't come in and lead this team. Maybe by the end of the year they might be, but they got to come in and earn it at some point, because, and I don't mean earn playing time, I mean earn respect. Because if they're going to bark orders, and I want my leaders to bark orders. That's what I want out of my leaders. I want, you know, in my case, I want Wayne Turner, who I was older than, an upperclassman. I want him barking at me when I'm out of position. I want him yelling at me, because that's my point guard, and my point guard has every right to tell me where I'm supposed to be. And I want that from these guys. I want it from DJ. I want it from the freshmen coming in. But we've got some upperclassmen, and that is a combination that in the past, we've not always had, but when we have had it, for the most part, I don't even know if we can say that anymore. The last 3 years have been rough, I get. But for the most part, when we've had that combination, we've done well. A lot of good freshmen and some upperclassmen that can lead and show these freshmen, like, look, it's 40 games. Of course, that's nothing for them anymore. But I think the most important thing to me is what I notice is, all right, guys, we're down 10 with 5 minutes to go. Game and over, right? Guys, we're up 10 with 5 minutes to go. Game and over. That's what I want from my leader too. I want my leader to be able to come in and say, look, game and over till it's 0-0-0-0 on that clock. And until then, it's not. So they're not getting a lot of respect right now. And as far as I'm concerned, Jalen, I hope they don't. I hope they continue to not. And I hope it's not from UK fans. I hope we obviously, and we will. I mean, UK fans are, they'll kick and scream, but man, when that ball's tipped, they're behind them. They are. But nationally, I hope we're not ranked in the top 10. I hope we're not ranked in the top 25 at the beginning of the year, because I don't care about that. I want to earn our way up and be peaking at March. And you take a team that thinks they should be ranked high and they're not, that chip gets right there, and all of a sudden they're out to prove to the world. I mean, we used to have those T-shirts, right? That came out, Kentucky against the world. That's the attitude we always ought to have, because that is how it feels sometimes, whether it's an invented disrespect or not. Man, these guys, they just, when they feel like they're disrespected, all of a sudden, all the pettiness and stupidness and ego, it gets pushed to the side, and they start and they just start playing. It's how most guys do.
Yeah. If you don't have an enemy, create one, right?
Exactly.
It's like Georgia. It's like what's the guy name? Head coach at Georgia saying that I guess he said some clipping was out there that Georgia was going to go 7-5 this year. I mean, you got to create one. You can't,
Yes.
I'm not hating on it. I hear
no. Listen, Coach Pitino, and I don't know how. I'm going to assume Coach Cal does this, but I've never been. I've been in the locker room once after a game. I've never seen his chalk talk, his pregame chalk talk. I don't know. But Coach Pitino was a master at that. I mean, he would, make stuff. Let me see. I don't know that he made it up. We suspected he made a lot of stuff up. Like, he would never tell us exactly he would like tell a coach loudly in practice what he heard someone on the other team say. And he also was constantly on us, like if you go back and you listen to interviews from the years I was there, from guys like Anthony Epps, Wayne Turner, anybody really, you will never hear a player say anything other than, we could be playing Little Sisters of the Poor, right? I mean, we could be playing a team like that, and you would still hear a group of guys, even that 96 team that knew we were going to run rough rod over everybody. You would hear in the pregame interviews with the media, we would say nothing but, this is a good team. This team could easily beat us. You know why? Because that's what our coach had told us all week. We literally it was a preseason game, Vinny. We were talking about, I brought up preseason earlier with Terry. We had a preseason game against like Athletes in Action or somebody that, again, we were expected to beat by 40. And it wasn't preseason, but it was one of those early season, games that we were supposed to beat by 40. A small D1 school was coming in, and it was like one of those, all right, let's beat them by 40 and let's get our day off tomorrow kind of thing. And he literally, Coach Pitino came in, and all week in prep, he had us convinced by game time that they were going to beat us by 20. Guys, this team is so much better than you. This team has so much more talent than you. They work harder than you. And we're buying it because, well, okay. All right. And what did it do, Jalen? He completely made it all up because maybe we'd had a bad week of practice. He didn't think we were taking it seriously. All right. You know what? I'm going to manufacture some chip on these guys' shoulders. I'm going to make them hate this team. And it worked. I don't even know what we beat that team by, but he did it all the time. And so you're right. If you don't have an enemy, invent one, because, man, that motivation is priceless.
Agreed, man.
AG, you got questions, man?
Yeah, I guess my one thing, Cam, is does it concern you at all, and just playing devil's advocate with everything you said about the roster, does it concern you at all, the kind of the trend of college basketball? I know it was really, I guess, only a 1-year sample size, but we're still in that period where, the COVID year, and you've got 24, 25-year-olds all over the country. And we saw 4 pretty experienced teams. UConn had some freshman contributors, but mostly 4 veteran teams get into the Final Four. Duke was probably as hot as anyone going into the dance, but with all their freshmen, they collapsed even.
Yep. No, that part doesn't worry me, because what worries me, and this is funny coming from me, because I have fought adamantly for something similar to the transfer portal Obviously, I'm a huge fan of NIL, both of which I get are causing issues and problems. And coaches have to recruit a freshman class, and they got to go recruit the portal. They never don't get to recruit. They're always recruiting now. As far as the trend, the thing is though, I don't think that's a trend. Like as far as having upperclassmen or teams with a bunch of upperclassmen doing well, you've got Calipari's teams. And then if y'all remember correct, when Cal came in and started doing this freshman only thing, and the only reason he was doing freshman only is because the freshmen he was getting were good enough to leave after 1 year. So we'd have to go back and reset. Everybody thinks it's like a plan of Cal's. I hear it all the time, like Cal and the way he does it. I'm like, what does he do? He goes out and recruits the best players he can. Would you rather him go out and intentionally recruit 2 stars and 3 stars? Is that what we want? Because I'll tell you this, when we lose 10 games with a group with a bunch of 2 stars and 3 stars as freshmen, how happy are UK fans going to be at that? He's got to go out and get the best he can get. And it just so happens, as he's done again this year, he's got a group of incredibly talented freshmen. Are they going to be the kind of freshmen that we had in 2012? I don't know. But they're incredibly talented. And he's got the number 1 recruiting class for, I don't know, the 10th time in his 14, 15 years here. So that nothing's changed as far as there's always, because if you look at the Final Fours, even the ones we've been in under Cal, for the most part, those other 3 teams were upperclassmen laden. They had experience. So, I mean, nothing's really changed with all of it. Now, the 25 and 26-year-olds playing, yeah, that's different. But I think that's going to end after this year. I think we're not going to have any more 8-year seniors.
I think we might see one more year of it.
Really?
I think so. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Well, look,
crazy.
If you're like, it took me 14 years to get my degree, so these guys are just taking full advantage of that anyway.
It's all good.
So, yeah, I'll play ball I can get my degree. So I'm not worried about it. I'm excited about it. As far as now, I do want it back to the 4-year typical, or even the 5th year. I don't mind the 5th year, but I don't think it's any different. I mean, the bottom line is we are gonna have 13 guys on scholarship. We're gonna have some walk-ons like usual. We're gonna have a team, and as I said earlier when I was talking to Vinny and Terry, right now, because practice has started. That's the brilliance of this going overseas every year thing, which we're apparently doing. I don't know how. I mean, when we went to Italy in right before the '96 season, we had 30 days of practice in June. 30 days. We had 10 days of practice, but we got in 30 practices in those 10 days. We did 3 a days for 10 days because there was no rule that we couldn't. So 30 practices in June. And then all of a sudden, okay, so we got that's a full month jumpstart on every other team in the country. So I'm hoping that's what they're getting right now. So, and that matters more so for Cal teams because they're younger. They need more time to get caught up. Invariably, Cal teams always start slow. But if we're honest, they tend to, last 3 years, notwithstanding, Cal's teams tend at the end of the year, man, they tend to be playing at their best. Now, look, that doesn't always mean a national championship because, guys, national championships, the best team doesn't always win it. This isn't the NBA where you've got 7-game series. It is a one and done. Once we hit that NCAA tournament, you got 6 games and you got to win them all, and only one team does that. So there's a reason it's called March Madness, and that's it. Because it's not if we were to play 7-game series to advance, it'd take another 3 months to get through the tournament. But truly, the best team would be crowned national champion, and that's not what we have happen. We've got one of the best teams. So no matter what kind of talent we have, we got a lot of work to do to get to March. And once we get to March, man, we got to be firing on all cylinders, playing as a team. Egos have to be to the side. And then, as much as I don't believe in luck, man, the ball's got to bounce our way a couple times. That's how you win national championships.
Yeah, I always said that once you hit the Sweet 16, it should be a 3-game series.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
That way you get, because everybody, let's face it, man, everybody, I like to see, the teams that don't typically make it to the Final Four make it. Yeah. So last year you had, I would like to see the ratings for the Final Four because if I had to guess, they were down. Everybody want to see the best players on the best teams compete.
It's interesting because you make a great point, Jalen, because I would too. I'd like to see a compare. We need to get somebody on this, Vinny. Vinny, get somebody on this.
I'm on it right now.
Aaron, this sounds like something you'd be good at.
I got you.
We need to get somebody to compare the TV ratings of the Final Four for the last 20 years. And then see, all right, when we had the teams Jalen's talking about, they're like, all right, no one. You weren't even in the top 100 at the beginning of the year. Nobody had you in the Final Four. And to see, is that what people want? Because that's what makes March Madness is that, well, why is this 15 seed beating Duke? Right. or in our case, when it happened to us, I mean, nobody expects that. And that's what drives those kind of non-traditional basketball fans crazy and draws them in. So I'd love to see like a comparison of like, okay, when you got 4 number 1 seeds in that Final Four spot, what are the ratings then? Because I do think Jalen's got a point, but I also think if you had, like a couple 8 seeds and then a 3 and a 4 seed, and those 8 seeds are like, man, nobody's thought about them all year. Like, then what? Like, would anybody care about that? Because I think it's those teams that like literally, oh, I didn't know they had a team, right? That's when people get excited to see them, whoever they are, in a Final Four. And I think that helps ratings. But if it's an Indiana that happens to be seeded 8 or a Kentucky that happens to be seeded 8 and we get there, well, obviously the Kentucky fans are going to up the ratings, but I don't know how much it'll help. So I think that's an interesting question, Jalen.
Yeah, I'm not seeing so it was down 6. I could just tell you from 2022, which obviously you had Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and the 4th team is slipping me off the top of my head. It was a 6% decline from that, though apparently it was down that year too from 2021, which is wild because there were no fans in the 2021 Final Four stand. So the environment a little different.
So everybody had to watch it on TV.
Right, it was
right, and you had that awesome. I think it was Gonzaga UCLA, that game where Jalen Suggs shot from like half court. So
that's all. That's right. Yeah.
But,
by the way, Aaron, I didn't expect you to get it done like during the show. I wanted like a 10-page essay or something, just maybe submitted to me, just so I could have that research.
Luckily, the schooling on my part's done.
There you go.
Aaron pulls quotes, and I mean, at the drop of a hat, he's always, hey, that's how he does. But man, Cam, we can't thank you enough. Hate we don't get to hear you next week. We got to wait till October to hear you and Buzz on the pregame show.
And it's better listening to Tom and Jack anyway, because you're going to get so much. Not that Buzz and I think we do well, but man, I love listening to Tom and Jack. So they'll get us all caught up.
I obviously hope everyone can watch, but they might get record numbers that are deserved because if you can't watch it, you'll have those two at least.
Bahamas last year, wasn't there only one game on TV, or were they all on TV?
No, they were all on ESPN.
Were they all?
SEC Network or something.
Anyway, so next week will be a showcase. They're going to find whoever has the rights. They'd be dumb not to at least find a way to air it, stream it somewhere in Kentucky.
Have to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, we'll let you go. So you can
Benny.
Go to bed,
man.
We'll be right behind you. Appreciate you,
Y'all have
Cam.
a great rest of the night.
All right, you too, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Man. Cameron Mills, 2-time champ. Hit the shot heard around the bluegrass when Kentucky was down 17 to Duke. Tubby Smith's first season. Came back, beat Duke, went on to the Final Four, and brought home another banner. So appreciate Cam hopping on here. We teased it last week because AG, man, you've been getting creative in these past summers.
Yeah.
Been excited. We're on here streaming live. First of all, let me just do a little, I don't know, they call it producing on air. We got the Believe in Kentucky YouTube channel. We got the Believe in Kentucky Facebook page, Believe in KY. We're live on the Believe in Kentucky Twitter. All that is going. Did it. This is the second week in a row. We got a few subscribers on YouTube, and let's see. A couple of them was like my kids got a YouTube channel. They subscribed. I had one of my own personal ones, so I subscribed. But the first subscriber, not related to any of us. First subscriber, that's not part of us, is JJ Sneed. He liked the show, said great show, said he enjoyed listening. Put the first comment. He said he was the third subscriber because he didn't know that, my kids had already subscribed, but he's really the first, subscriber outside of us. So JJ, when you watching, we appreciate it. My idea, fellas, I'm just going to run this by y'all. I think since JJ's the first subscriber, the first commenter, the first person to like it, I think, going to get him a Cat Daddy shirt that, Jalen, you named it. We got merch, shop.believe.com, shop.beleav.com. These shirts come in blue, white, or gray. So JJ, man, put us, a comment, or hit us on Twitter, DM us, however you want to get in touch with us. Let us know your size, what color you want. We'll get you a Cat Daddy shirt, and tell your friends that bleed blue about the show. Tell them about us live streaming. They can watch and listen and check us out just like you have, and we appreciate it. But hit us up, JJ, and we'll get you a shirt, man.
Sure.
Sounds like a fair deal to me.
Yeah, man. We teased it last week, AG, man, while you was traveling. We'll just let you have the floor. Talk about what you're doing this summer to count down and all that, man, on the Cat's Paw.
Yeah, man. I kind of was trying to hunt for an idea because last year I obviously went through those rankings with top 100 players of the Stoops era, which was very difficult. And this one was a little easier because you don't have to rank anything. But I've kind of just gone in chronological order, kind of recapping the last 100 wins in the team's history. And it's just something I like to do. It was actually, I think I want to give credit to Curtis Birch when he was at Big Blue Insider. I forget exactly what he did, so forgive me there. But he had something where it was in 100 days to kick off. It might have been just different players, football players who wore that jersey number on the day. So I want to give him credit for that. And that kind of gave me the idea for last year. So kind of stuck with it this year. It's been a busier summer than I thought news-wise. So it's been a little tougher to kind of get ahead and make sure we're staying on it every day. So, but it's been a lot of fun kind of going through these. Got to see some of Jalen's wins when he was starting at quarterback and read about those a little more. So that was pretty cool. And it's been fun. So I think, I've written, I'm like a week ahead of writing all of them, so I don't lose my mind doing it. But I think which one did I release? The start of 2015. So it's creeping up quick. I mean, kickoff and it's fun. I mean, you see the number go down each day, and man, we're 59 days outside of kickoff, which is pretty damn exciting.
So you write 6 or 7 games ahead, schedule them the post and all that kind of stuff. That way it doesn't sneak up on you. You're like, oh God, I got you.
Exactly. Especially, I think I have it written through 52 and we're on 60. So, we're on 59. So 7 days ahead with Toronto coming up, Nashville after that. There's a lot going on. So trying to make sure we're all good to go.
So we kicked it around a couple of weeks ago that since you're doing the countdown of the 100 most recent wins for Kentucky football, we just each rank our top 10 of those wins, however you want to approach it, however you want to do it. We each just kind of round robin, go from 10 to 1 and, see why we put what win where and, the approach to, this is really the first time we've done on this podcast. In the summertime, you have lists or you see Mount Rushmore type stuff. And because, you kind of feel you got time to do that kind of thing. There's no games, there's not as much news. So, you put out lists. This is our first list type of show. And I don't know. Mark Story does the whole Kentucky Sports Person of the Year for the Hurl Leader every year. And he sends out the ballot. And that stuff is fun, but it can be tough.
Oh, God, that is so hard, man. I struggle so much with that one.
That ballot, there's this like the 4th or 5th year I've done it. So I'll approach it differently each year. I'll look for this one year. I'll look for this another year. I always try to put the Kentucky-Louisville rivalry aside and just look at Kentucky as a state. If somebody from Louisville I think is on there, I put them in my, I don't see blue and red when I do it. There's so many different ways to approach it. So I'm just curious to see what we come up with for our top 10, how we approach it and all that stuff. So, man, look, Aaron, you wrote the piece. You write these columns. I think you should start and then, me and Jalen just kind of fill in. Just go you, Jalen, me, and just kind of round robin it, man.
Yeah, it's hard because I want to pick kind of the ones that, I got to experience. But, writing these and kind of learning some things, it changes the opinion a little bit. So I'm going to go back to, I'll kind of be a little random with it because this one I knew not, I'll be straight up honest with you all. Obviously, unlike Benny, I didn't grow up in Kentucky. I came here in 2017. I learned the history really quick. I'd been obviously watched plenty of Kentucky games, just being a college football fan for years. So it's not like I knew nothing about the program coming to Lexington. But I think the first one that caught my eye, that I didn't know much about when I started doing this thing was that 2008 game against Arkansas, where Kentucky was down 20-7, I believe, with 8 minutes left, and then they didn't cut it to 2014 until the 4:15 point. So it tells you how, back then, I don't know if they had the win probability and all that, but I can't imagine it was very high. You cut the lead to 6 with 4:15. It was a 32-yard touchdown from Randall Cobb. And then they were able to get a short punt, take over at the 250 mark, and march down the field and score again, because Cobb was able to run for a 21-yard touchdown. And then Marcus McClinton got the game-winning pick to seal it. So to score 14 unanswered in 4 minutes there, win a game over a conference rival, I think that's deserving of kind of a fun one to sneak into the back half here.
Mm-hmm. I can't disagree with that. What you got for 10, Jay?
Man, I can't lie to you, man. This thing is tough. I mean, there's so many good wins. And it's impossible for me to rank it because I don't know, but there are a few wins that come to mind that stick out the most, and I'll start with that. To me, from the time I've started really, watching Kentucky football and really, learning about it and obviously playing and all of that good stuff. I think and it's funny because the first game that popped into mind when I thought about like top 10 wins was 2014 Kentucky Florida at Florida, which was a loss.
That was so close.
But I think that was the game in my eyes. I was still in college. I was at Eastern then. That game kind of tilted the scale in my opinion. And I was like, okay, they moved in the right direction and this thing is going the right way. Even though we all know what happened at the end of the game, clock hit 0-0, you shouldn't have gotten the playoff. But I think that game. But as far as wins, man, it's tough because, like I said, you can go anywhere and grab a win. But another win that kind of popped up was the Tennessee Kentucky game in 2011. A game that to me that popped up as
Spoiler alert.
as definitely top 10, and that may range from, depending on who you're talking to. But for me, I didn't know how big the rivalry was until I got to Kentucky. So I remember watching that game in 2011 or seeing it on ESPN Sports Center like late at night on Saturday night, when everybody get in bed late at night, you turn on TV right before you go to sleep. And I remember seeing that. And I was like, man, I didn't know it was that big of a rivalry. Then it took me to get here. I was like, okay, that's a huge rivalry. So I'll throw that in there. Like I said, it's hard for me to go order, man. Like it's tough. It's hard.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Aaron, we can volley back and forth, and Jalen, jump in on what we got if you want to. You want to do that, man? My 10, and you mentioned Kentucky, Florida. This was 2021 at home. Kentucky 20, Florida 13. I'm gonna go and tell you, a lot of my selections are gonna be petty. They just are. And that's one of them. This is, they had won in the Swamp already, but this is the first win in Lexington since 1986. And so, people in Kentucky hadn't seen Kentucky beat Florida at home.
That's exactly
I had just turned 9 years old. I wasn't paying attention back then. I didn't, the streak was one of many terrible streaks that Kentucky was on the wrong end of. So it was sweet, of course, winning in the Swamp, but to see them get that win at Kroger Field, 20-13, blocked field goal, defensive struggle. At that moment, I don't care what the team goes on to do or not do. Florida went on to not have a great season, whatever. Just like Kentucky beat Alabama in 1997 for the first time in 75 years, that Alabama team turned out to not be good. I don't care, whatever. At that moment,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So Kentucky beat Florida 20-13 in Kroger Field, ended a losing streak at home. So that's my number 10 selection of these most recent wins. So the last 15 years, basically. That's how far you went back, AG, right, to get this 100. So.
Yes, week 2 of 2007.
Okay. So that's my number 10, Kentucky, Florida.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. So I'll be quick because Jalen kind of talked about my 9, which was that 2011 Matt Rourke game. So we can kind of fly through that and go right to you at 9.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think, what year was it? The Lamar Jackson fumble year.
Oh, 16.
Yeah. That kind of rings out to me. That's a prominent win. It was a big win. You're playing the best player in the country for 2 years straight, in my opinion. I thought Lamar Jackson was the best football player in the country, and I think he's the best football player in the NFL too. But that's just my opinion. But that win stood out to me. That I could throw that in at 9.
Yeah. I'll have more to say on your number 9, Aaron, later. You flew over it.
I knew you were there. You got to save that one.
I'm gonna hit it hard later.
Yeah, do it.
For number 9, like like I said, how you approach it. Do you go by program changing wins? Do you go by did it get them over the hump?
Right.
And do you go with your heart? Some of mine, like I said, I put more petty stuff in here than I did program changing stuff.
And that's fine, man.
But
that's good.
Yeah, number 9, 2017, you beat Tennessee 29-26. Y'all already talked about 2011. There just haven't been wins against Tennessee to speak of at all. You go from 1984 to 2011, another dreadful streak. So this was the second win versus Tennessee at home. 2011, then you get them again in 2017. Steven Johnson comes in diving and, doing flips and landing on his shoulder and hurt and going to the locker room and coming back and pulling the Willis Reed, that whole thing. And, Kentucky played terrible. Kentucky had 4 turnovers to Tennessee's none, still won the game. They hang them to the ball. They blow them out like we've been dying to see. You blow them out like you did in 2020, but that wasn't the case. They had to hang on for dear life. But, you talked about me writing for Cameron Mills' website. I think the article I wrote was a win over Tennessee is a win over Tennessee is a win over Tennessee.
That's right.
And that's what that was, because we've seen plenty of losses to Tennessee. So the game ends, you got more points than them. That's all we were looking for.
Yeah, you can't take those for granted. They haven't come much. That's just what it is. Tennessee, to their credit, as painful as it is for some of the fans here in Lexington across Kentucky, they own Kentucky in the last 30 years. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But 8, that's why this makes it hard, because I think this game probably gets overshadowed because 2018 was, we talked about Florida. Obviously that was a streak that was broken. But how about the Mississippi State game? That was the one I was at. Start off 3-0. Obviously, you won it in Gainesville 2 weeks before. You did what you should have against Central Michigan, against Murray State, whatever. That game, man, everyone kind of knew, because State came in ranked 14th. If you win it, you're probably ranked for the first time. I think it would have been 2007, maybe 8. I think it's 2007. So 11 years you hadn't been a ranked team. And what does being ranked mean? We kind of went over it with Cam on the basketball side. It might not mean a lot, but it means a lot to a program that hasn't done that in a while. So when you saw like FAU basketball do it last year, when you see Kentucky football when they started to do it, in 2018, and that game against 3 first-rounders on that State defense, Montez Sweat, Simmons, and Abram. I mean, 3 first-rounders and other guys I believe got drafted either later that year or in the future. Benny Snell runs for 4 touchdowns. I forget exactly how many yards, but a crap ton. Just ran all over them. Josh Allen has a huge sack with the fog still coming out from the fourth quarter. I know he had a multiple sack game. I don't remember how many he had, if it was 2 or 3 off the top of my head, but he was dominant. The defense, gave up a touchdown early, and that was it. I believe State scored first, so it would have been 28 unanswered. You had that there was a special teams play that stands out to me in that game where Zach Johnson just absolutely laid out the punt returner clean. No fair catch, nothing, just a clean hit. And I think it just spoke of how motivated that team was, how bad they wanted it, how hard they came out and wanted to get it. The crowd was, that's one of the best. I mean, I've seen some really good Kroger Field crowds, with how good this team has been for the most part the last 5 or 6 years. That one is up there for me as one of the best I've seen. So I think the meaning of that to be ranked for the first time in so long, the crowd, I think that's why it's in there for me.
I'm with you. That's my number 8 also. 2018 Mississippi State. The doubt of Kentucky, Kentucky not being taken seriously until they won that game. We'll see. Well, here's their first real test. Let's see, will they? The doubt from the fan base who knows the history of Kentucky football, of how the struggle is. Well, can they do it against Mississippi State? We're hope they can, but can they? The national perception of Kentucky, they're probably going to lose to Mississippi State. So for them to come out and just wax them like that, that was cool. So that's my number 8 game too, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, we're going to 7? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm looking through my list here. It's hard, man, because you don't want to underrank some of these.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it because I think there's been a lot more since. I think you could easily argue it should be higher. But 2014 South Carolina, I mean, don't have to say too much on it. But that was kind of a turning point game. I think, Jalen mentioned obviously how well they played Florida a couple weeks before that. And obviously that was huge to kind of build the confidence and say, hey, we could play with these boys. Who knows, call here, call there, whatever. Then you actually got it done. And I know South Carolina went on to have a bad year, I believe. No, the next year they were bad. That year they actually went 7-5. But to win that game the way they did, they were down 14 in the fourth. Obviously, we all know what happened with Bud Dupree there. JoJo Kemp was unbelievable. First blackout. I don't know if they'd ever done that before. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be easily wrong. But first one that I know, I remember. And first time probably in the Stoops area, that place was packed and just buzzing from kickoff to the finish there. So I got to go with that one. I know they didn't finish that season off well at all. They had the big losing streak, but I still think that was a pretty big momentum shift.
Yeah, I think that was probably going to be, my top 3 that game there. I think you can't discount that game. There was, huge. that kind of opened everybody's eyes. I mean, you still got the Grove Street thing from that game, and it was a big day.
That's right.
Yeah, it was a big day in Kentucky athletics. I really believe that. Like I said, blackout, just the way they wanted, beating South Carolina at home. But I think in this spot, another game that comes to mind, the years are running together for me, but the year where Kentucky absolutely blew Tennessee out of the water.
That was 2020. Yeah, COVID year.
Yeah. I thought that was huge because that never happened. I mean, a straight blowout, the possibilities, it showed you, okay, there's a ceiling that's getting higher here. Again, Tennessee probably wasn't as great, whatever, but you're talking about a rivalry game. It don't even matter how good Alabama-Auburn is. It's always a good game. So you can always go to the rivalry games being good. And, you blow out a team, you blow out your rival. I think that has to be in the list. For me, anytime you blow out a rival, that got to be somewhere in the list. Because, that's, a lot is riding on that game. You got houses divided. Some people got to sleep on the porch. I mean, it's just a lot going on that, man. So I think that got to be put in there somewhere.
Spoiler alert again. Mhm. But yeah, I'm with you, especially, and I'm not, especially growing up on the Kentucky-Tennessee border, and I'm no doubt the Kentucky fans that's across the river from Indiana feel the same way about Indiana, and that whole kind of thing. But I grew up 3 hours from Lexington. I grew up 3 hours from Knoxville. I got just as much Knoxville news as I did WKYT, WLEX. I got, that whole, I was right in the middle of the crossfire of all the markets. So, yeah, so that's, I'm glad you put the South Carolina win in there. Me being petty, I should have put it in there, but I just couldn't. I didn't have room for it. That doesn't mean I don't cherish that win, because that pick, that Bud Dupree play is unbelievable. And that was monumental for sure. My number 7, because I did want to make sure I put kind of program changing wins. My number 7 one, I put the Citrus Bowl win over Iowa, because that was the first time I've seen 10 wins in the win column in my life.
Penn State was
as a
the
Kentucky
first
fan.
one. You look at the first one.
Did I switch them around?
Yeah, that's
my
all right.
bad. My bad.
No,
I got Iowa 7. My bad. I got Penn State
No,
later.
you're
I
good,
looked
you're
at
good.
them. Yeah, I got Iowa 7, the second one. So
Okay.
second time I've seen 10 wins in my life. Kentucky beating Iowa. And no doubt, everybody's hoping for 10 regular season wins, they keep knocking down doors and getting to that point. But to win 9, go to a bowl game and get that win over Iowa, 20-17. Wandale doing his thing. It's New Year's Day to win those types of bowl games, to win on that level. It's still something that hasn't been done a whole lot. So even though we just saw it a few years prior to that, and I just misspoke, we just saw it again for the second time when they beat Iowa, and that's program changing type stuff, in my opinion.
No doubt about it. No doubt
Sure.
about it. So I think that's where we at 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough, but I'll go way back on this. Why not? We'll go with that Louisville game in 2007. So the second game that was even eligible for this list. Don't have to go too far into it again, because I think it's a pretty well-known one. But I forgot what the losing streak to Louisville was at that point. It might have been 3. It might have been worse. I can't remember exactly. But to get that win the way they did over a number 9 ranked Louisville, we all know, Stevie Johnson getting loose. There's not much you have to say about it. I'll go with that at 6.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I went, and that's probably why I don't have a Louisville one in here. I went number 6. The game I was at, I went back to 2009, because this was back. There weren't a lot of road wins. There weren't a lot of happy plane rides home. There weren't a lot of flights and bus rides home. But that win at Auburn, 21-14, you just didn't see Kentucky win on the road a lot. And honestly, going down there, they weren't expected to win that day. In my mind, I'm like, hope they win, but it's my first trip to Auburn. I was like, I'm probably going to see Toomer's Corner get rolled at the end of this game, and that's like, well, that'll be something I can say I've seen.
Right.
Turns out that wasn't the case. Randall Cobb and the fellas had other plans. Kentucky wins 21-14. Have to go down there some other time to see Toomer's Corner get rolled. I went to Toomer's drugstore, got me lemonade, got me some food, seen all the sights. Didn't see no toilet paper rolling that night, though, because the Cats got a back then a rare road win, and it was fun to be in the crowd for that.
That's kind of spoiler alert for me, because I had that one in there, because that was one of the first wins. I remember I was talking to some of the guys that had been on that team, who they really enjoyed that one. So that was big.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And Coach Brooks, it was, I think they had a win against Georgia with Brooks or Joker Phillips at one point back then. That was probably the last win against Georgia. because that streak is kind of getting pretty high. And then this Auburn win, I forget which one came first, but it was another. Hey, cool. Oh, one that kind of got you. Ooh, look there. Yeah. So that was my 6. We hitting top 5 territory now.
Yeah, top 5. I'm
Top
saying
5.
that way. It makes it hard, man. I'll you know what? I'll do this one more so for fun than anything else, but it might even been higher for you guys. I don't know, but I won't say it was necessarily the most meaningful win, but one of the cooler, most exciting games, probably the most exciting game I ever covered, and that was that Belk Bowl in 2019, where you have Lynn Bowden fighting the entire Virginia Tech team pregame. It literally, a rule was invented because of that game. That I don't know what it was, but at the time, and I saw it happen from the press box too, which was nuts. But at the time, the rule was the officials have, authority to eject, authority over the players, I think 90 minutes before the start of the game. And I think it's either 90 minutes or an hour, but whatever it was, the fist fight was 8 minutes before that time. So Lynn was able to play. And he runs for 233 yards at quarterback. He's running all day. They can't throw the ball. Not surprisingly, he's a wide receiver. And then they throw in the game-winning touchdown because, of course, they do. I mean, that game, with all the drama before it, with everything that happened, and the back and forth of it, man. And you looked at that matchup, and it wasn't like you scoffed at it like we kind of did with Iowa in this Music City Bowl. We were kind of like, oh God, this is going to be ugly. But Virginia Tech was all right that year. Kentucky, we knew, the run game was exciting, but they weren't great because they didn't have a passing game. You didn't really know, and it was I forget what's the name of their defensive coordinator who was so good.
Yeah,
but it was his last game.
Yeah. The camera shots on him were
all
ridiculous.
game. Yeah, and I didn't have to see. I didn't have to see that.
Bud something other.
Bud Foster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was just insane. That whole storyline, and they just completely ruined his last game. And it was a fun crowd too. A lot of Kentucky fans, a lot of Virginia Tech fans. It was a pretty short drive for them. It was a great atmosphere in Charlotte. So I covered that one. Maybe there's some bias in there, but that's 5 for me. That game was too good.
Yeah, like you said, that's a lot of mine. Maybe not as meaningful. I told you, a lot of mine were petty. So there's no wrong way. That's what's the fun of it, the way you approach it and go. But my number 5, I misspoke earlier, but that's 2019 Penn State in the Citrus Bowl. Well, the first time around for 10 wins in my lifetime, that 1977 team, I was born midway through that season when they went 10-1 with Derek Ramsey and Art Steele and all those guys. So I'd heard all the stories about that team, got to meet some of those guys. Heard my dad talk about watching that squad. So to actually see a team finish the season with 10 wins for the first time, that's, and then, Benny setting the record and everything that went along with that, the little extra nuggets in addition to the win over a big name program like Penn State too, that carried a lot of weight.
Absolutely. And my favorite thing from that game was Mark Stoops screaming, "Bring it on," at James Franklin when they tried that fake punt deep in their own field. that one was all. I bet Jalen got a kick out of seeing that, man.
Yeah. Do they have real beef or something, man?
I think so. Well, if you remember, you were on that team in 2012. James Franklin ran up the score on y'all.
2012. Yeah, 2012 beat the hell out of us.
And they were running up the score. They didn't have to keep scoring. The clock was the game.
They 2013 was one of the worst games I've ever been a part of as a player by far.
The one in Nashville or the one
that was in Nashville.
Oh, okay. Yeah, something. I don't know if something happened that one. I know 2012 Stoops wasn't there yet, granted.
Yeah,
but I know they ran up the score on y'all in 2012, and that didn't sit well with anyone in the program.
It was 40 to nothing and 38 to 8.
There were 5 people left.
And 38 to 8 back to back. It was 78 to 8 over 2 years span, I think.
It was embarrassing to say the least. And I just remember that the next year or the year before, so 2012, they definitely kind of, were doing some questionable things towards the end of the game, as far as like being super aggressive still.
Yes.
Which at the end of the day, I have this mentality as a coach now, not to take too much time away from the list, but
No, yeah.
I don't fault that, man, because at the end of the day, as a competitor, it's our job to stop them. Their job is to play their players and let their players play. They work all summer to do this. So when Tennessee is doing what they did in Missouri last year, throwing the bombs with 15 seconds to go and whatever they were doing, I don't see that as a negative per se. Because at the end of the day, would you just gonna let your tools get in the game just to hand the ball off? You got two receivers as well. Like this, I get it. Some people may not like that, but it's not your job to take care of the other team's feelings.
Sure.
So I never, honestly, as a player, when that was happening, I never thought anything of it. I was like, they're doing what they're supposed to do. But I got a funny story I'll tell y'all off air though from that. Hey, this was gonna have you crying laughing.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. We'll get through these last ones right quick.
Where are we at? 4?
Yep, top 4.
Yeah. Man, I'm looking forward in 18. 31 years. Torturous losses near the end of that streak too. Jalen hit 2014. 2015 was close. I was there in 2017 when you're leading 27-13. 27-13.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, you leave a man uncovered. They go up.
Oh man, that was.
And then you get that really, really questionable holding call on Nick Haynes that if it's not called. You have Austin McGinnis in field goal range. You feel pretty damn good about Austin McGinnis in field goal range. So the next year to kind of just alleviate all those demons. I know it was I think the final score was 23. I don't remember the final score was. It was 27-16.
That's right.
With the Devontae Robb, that wacky touchdown to end the game.
Yeah.
But even though they were up whatever, they were up one score that last play. It felt like they were up by more. I just think the way obviously that Terry Wilson, you could argue that was his best performance in a UK uniform. He played in that game was incredible. The throw he made to Lynn Bowden and David Bouvier for that, right? Were two of the best throws I saw him make as a Wildcat. So Benny obviously did a great job. And the defense, man, Josh Allen, big-time players show up in big-time games. And boy, did he show up. Obviously, the game-winning strip sack. Robinson, keeps running to kind of have a moment in the end zone to finish that one. So I got to go with that one. That one was, you're talking 31 years of hell for Kentucky fans. Ending right there.
Yep, can't argue that at all. For me, I go back 2007, more of a get over the hump, more of a just pure joy. The win over LSU, 43-37. They're ranked number 1. Les Miles and them come in here, and it's just back and forth. Andre Woodson go toe-to-toe with those guys to come up with the stop. Overtime. It's CBS 3:30. So I think we going to Atlanta for part of it. So you got your phone out, and then we get to the hotel, get in, turn the TV on, and see the stop, see the last closing moments of the game, see the field getting stormed from the aerial view. Oh man, that's just
that would be number 1 for me.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. You can't. It's hard.
It's hard to argue that. And then they won the national championship.
Yeah.
How do you, and then what makes it number 1 for me is Andre doing it.
Yeah.
And then you got Stevie on the team. Both of those guys. I had a chance to meet. Obviously, Andre was on staff in 2012. But I love both of those guys for what they meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. So where does that leave us? We're at 3?
Yeah.
3. I'm going to go with that one. I know it could easily be 1 and probably should be, just given what, beating number 1. I think I don't know if it was the only time in history, but it's one of the few. Obviously, LSU was a rare 2-loss national championship. 22 for anyone who is newer to watching college football, look, there's a YouTube video of all the craziness that happened in 2007, and the Kentucky win is in there. LSU lost twice that year and still won the national championship deservingly. Deservingly. And I mean, you're talking App State over Michigan, so many others. Iowa State beat, I think, number 2 Oklahoma State or one of those. It was just a year of the upset, and that Kentucky, both and for that matter, I think the Louisville wins in that video too. And so there's just that year was insane in college football. Kentucky was right in the middle of it. But I'll put that one on 3 for some recency bias on my part.
That'll work. For number 3, I went to Petty Right again. I went 2020, 34-7 at Neyland Stadium, because once again, you hadn't won there since 1984. You beat them in 17-12 in 1984. Jeff Picoro, who's now on UK Sports Network with Tom Leach, was a receiver along with Joker Phillips in that game. And that's when the streak started. And then to go down there, I don't care. It was COVID. They didn't have fans. It don't matter. They got blown out. Jeremy Pruitt, Jerry Gantano, Tennessee fans can blame them and hate on them all they want. I don't care. The pick 6, Jamin Davis, Bossman Fat to the house. It was great to finally see that streak brought to an end. Kentucky ended the streak in 2011, but now the Neyland streak was over. Just like Kentucky beats Florida in the Swamp, then Kentucky beats Florida and Lexington. Both streaks are over. You end all of that stuff that you've been dealing with.
Yeah, I honestly, man, I think, and yeah, it would have been cool to see them do it with Neyland at its best. Obviously, when the balls are good, that place is as good as anywhere in the nation. Hey, man, that was a hard year on everybody, and that year to even have the motivation to play through all that,
Jeremy Pruitt
for some guys,
Jeremy Pruitt with his mask on a shield over his.
But I mean, just insane. And obviously, I think that was the last game Schlarman was at. So to do it while he was there, that was really cool. So unfortunately, COVID restrictions, I didn't get to go to that one. I wish I did, but I was covering that one from home. And that was a beatdown. And you thought that might have sparked that 2020 team just because that year, anything was possible with how things were lined up. But unfortunately, didn't quite do that. But I think Kentucky fans will almost trade having that one over the year that ended up being after that.
Definitely want to see Kentucky win when they got 100,000 in there and quieten them and want to see that coming as well. But we'll take that one for 2020 for now and hope for that other one soon. So we get down to our final 2, man. Final 2. What we got?
Yeah. I'm going back to that 2018 Citrus Bowl at 2. I think obviously got you to 10 wins, and that's monumental for this program. It was only the 3rd time it had never been done before. And obviously, Kentucky did it again in 2021 to make it 4. But, I mean, that year was just that 2018. I don't want to take anything away from the 21 team, but I think that 2018 team, the offense had its deficiencies. In the passing game, there were some. Terry had the injury against Mississippi State, and that really made them one-dimensional at times. But the way that team defensively dominated and did show flashes offensively, the way the running game was, the offensive line with all the NFL talent they had on that thing, and to finish it off with, like you said when you were talking about it, a name brand. A guy in James Franklin that clearly Mark Stoops and no one in Kentucky likes. He had that whole spiel about the real Big Blue fans or whatever, and then Stoops gave it back to him during the trophy ceremony. And the way two things with that game, the way obviously get the Benny record, that's another layer, but the way you took it to him and jumped out, I think 27-3, 27-7. I mean, it was a beatdown. And then Penn State, and credit Trace McSorley, man, they came. McSorley got hurt. Clifford couldn't do anything. McSorley comes back in, and he's Superman. He gets them back in that game. It's 27-24. And, at the end of the day, you left Penn State with very little time. I know it was really cool that Chris Oates obviously got the game-winning fumble recovery, too, on kind of the lateral last-ditch effort from Penn State there. But to get that win when we've seen Kentucky when they were going through things, and even the year before, we talked about the Florida 2017 game that they melted down. We saw Kentucky melt down. That's a Kentucky loss. That's Kentucky, same old Kentucky, whatever. That game that easily could have happened again. Easily. It's 27-3, and you cough that lead up and make it a 3-point game. And they didn't, man. They held on. They found a way, and no one remembers that game even got close because of what it meant to this program. And it was the first bowl win for Stoops. You know, they finally got into those bowl games in 16 and 17. They probably could have won in 17. They tried to go for 2. Steven Johnson was playing on one leg. You know, what a warrior that guy was, but they didn't get it done. 16, you know, first taste of bowl game. They get blown out by Georgia Tech. But it was the first bowl win since I believe ECU back in 2008. So that one's special, I think, for the program, and really laid the momentum for the next couple of years because they went on to win 4 straight bowls, or four straight.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was 2, right?
That was 2.
Yeah. So my 2, we kind of hit it already. At Florida, 2016, beat them 27-16 to end that streak. Pretty much hit on that already. You know, just getting rid of all of those things. Like Stoops even says it, knocking down doors, continuing, you know, to put all that bad history behind them. These guys here that are playing weren't born for most of it. They heard about it, but it didn't happen on their watch, so to speak. So that Florida win, the Terry Wilson throws, you know, Cash Daniels, at the end with he's channeling the wrestler, you know, because Cash Stone Cold said so as he's leaving the field. Yeah, so that was all.
That's right.
All
the water bottles.
And that one too, I think it was back when Periscope was a thing. Watching Jerry Lorenzen watch Kentucky beat Florida.
Yes.
How emotional he got and how close he got to ending that streak. But watching him be able to see Kentucky beat Florida, and then we know he tragically passed, you know, a couple years later.
Yep.
But watching Jared watch it, man, that was awesome too.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff, especially knowing, you know, obviously what happened the next year. But yeah, that win meant a lot to a lot of people. You know, we mentioned the 2014 team. I bet it meant a lot to those guys. I bet it meant a lot to the 2015 guys, even the 17 guys who, you know, missed it by 1 year, the seniors specifically, like even give kicker love, like an Austin McGinnis, who, you know, was 1 year away with the best kicker in the school's history, or Nick Haynes, who had the holding that was not a holding that cost them that game. How, you know, I think it's a monkey off all those guys' backs. And I think Lorenzen was kind of the guy to kind of speaking on or just showing it on the behalf of everyone that's kind of been a part of that thing for those years. But one for me, man, it's got to be, and Jalen mentioned it earlier, that's 2016 game at Louisville, where we'll save a Louisville conversation for next week about something you sent today.
Yes.
We'll talk about some of current present day Louisville football, but there was no denying how good that team was. Obviously, Lamar Jackson was the best player in the country, Heisman Trophy winner. I think they got all the way to 3, and then, you know, they got steamrolled by Houston, and that knocked them out of playoff consideration. But that was a team that wasn't close to being playoff caliber. They were definitely, you know, a New Year's Six worthy team. Not just, I mean, Lamar was their best player, sure, but that team had a lot of players, had did a lot of great things. And for Kentucky, who, you know, that year it started off with the Southern Miss loss of the revenge game from the offensive coordinator the year before. You choke that game away, then you get killed by Florida. You know, the last 2 years they were close. Then you get both raced. Then week 3, you beat New Mexico State, but you win like 62-42. You're losing in the third quarter. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, is this going to be a turn back year? Is Stoops going to even keep his job? And you already, by then you're up to 6, you're up to 6-5, and you're going into Louisville 28-point underdogs facing the Heisman Trophy winner. And what do you do the whole game almost? You match him point for point. I mean, Steven Johnson, I remember, I think it was the first play Kentucky had from scrimmage where he's bumping his head. You could tell he's super confident, and he throws an absolute bomb to Juice Johnson, touchdown, first play of the game. And it kind of sent a message like, hey, we'll get into a shootout with y'all. And that's what they did. And then obviously, like Jalen mentioned earlier, and he had some picks in that game. I know Mike Edwards had one. I think Beatty had one too.
Yeah, he did 2 picks and 1 fumble, I think.
2 picks and a fumble, yeah. It was Beatty and Edwards, and then the fumble at the end of the game to get the ball back and set up, like I said, the best kicker the school's ever seen, Austin McGinnis, to win it. That game, I mean, I know they lost the bowl game to Georgia Tech. They finished 7-6, whatever. But to beat Louisville for the first time, I think at that point it would have been since 2010 or 11. I think it was 10. You end that losing streak. You beat the Heisman Trophy winner in their house. You get a ranked win, which I believe outside of the 2015 game against the number 25 Missouri was only the second that Stoops had gotten. First road ranked win. I mean, talk about knocking down doors, doing it against the team, your fan base wants to beat more than anybody. Do it against the best quarterback, your rival school's ever seen. One of the best I think college football has ever seen. That game to me, it's got to be number one for right now. Hopefully they can make another one. And who knows, that Alabama game, we circle that as a possibility, right? Anytime they're on the schedule, you never know. Anything could happen on any given Saturday. But that
Georgia.
We're Georgia. Though you got 2 chances at it, especially with that one being in between the hedges. But you never know. But man, that one's got to be one for me.
That's right. And, I said, spoiler alert, I went petty, 2011.
You were in the building with family. That's
Tennessee.
Doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, and, talk about the near misses. You look through the year-by-year stats. There's games with Tennessee's 24-21, 38-35. Tennessee was better, but Kentucky was there and should have won. You go to the Andre Woodson game, the 4 overtime, 52-50 game. Sit there for that one. The Lane Kiffin year when he was at Tennessee, they win 30-24 in overtime. So many times it was just right there. And to finally see him get over the hump. It wasn't a great Tennessee team again. Who cares? Kentucky wasn't a good team that year.
They had a wide receiver playing quarterback. And it's not Lynn Bowden either. No offense to Matt Rourke. They didn't have Lynn Bowden playing quarterback. They had Matt Rourke playing quarterback.
We were in the crowd like, man, they're not passing. I mean, Tennessee why are they even playing us to pass? They're not going to pass. We all knew nothing. They're not going to threaten these guys down the field. We know. But, hey, to see them get up 10-0, and then Tennessee scores 10-7, you're like, oh, God, they're going to beat us 14-10 in the last minute. We've seen this movie 1,000 times. And to see, Kentucky hold on, and then, you storm the field, and it's, it's pure joy. I went pure joy again for number one. So that's my number one to round out the top 10.
Yeah, man. I think if real quick, some honorable mentions that kind of like just missed, I guess you could say, I know we had a couple off of it. I didn't mention the 2017 one at home against Tennessee. I still think that was really big. And I think even 2018 one I wanted to, but the CJ Conrad last play of the game, the reason I didn't include it is because it wasn't real. I don't know how you called that pass interference on a Mad Wagner because he was out of bounds. I think Kentucky got a break. But you know what? The way they did that, man, they were down 14-3 in the fourth. You get the punt return from Lynn. He begged Stoops to let him return that punt because that was David Bouvier's job. David Bouvier steps aside, lets Lynn do it. He takes it to the house. The offense was terrible that whole game. You even had Gunnar Hope come in and replace Terry Wilson at one point in that game. Terry comes back out and, he hits Bouvier a couple times on that drive. He hits Lynn plenty of times on that drive. And then you get an untimed down. You need a touchdown to win the game. And you find the veteran CJ Conrad in the back of the end zone. So, that one probably was like the closest just miss for me. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. I even would, obviously the second Citrus Bowl against Iowa. I know that game wasn't like the most aesthetically pleasing, but again, last minute drive, the Wandale play, obviously Chris finishing it off with a touchdown, Square on one leg, with the interception, really shouldn't even have been playing, comes in and gets that done. So, that one too. And then, the 2 bowl wins, obviously with Rich Brooks, or it might, he won 3, but the 2 that would have been included for this, the Florida State game, which I know Florida State vacated that whole season, and then ECU too. So those are probably the ones that were closest, but especially that 2018 game at Mizzou.
Absolutely, man. Good stuff. Fun list. Appreciate you, AG, with the top 100 countdown, and then us, taking different approaches and coming up with our top 10. And there's no wrong answer.
No.
Everybody will have a different top 10 and different reasons why they got what they have ranked where they have it. But a lot of fun, and look forward to doing it again, man. And we're getting closer and closer to the season. Look forward to checking in with you north of the border next week.
That's right. Yeah, I'll talk to y'all then. Afternoon game, so I'll be able to join y'all.
And appreciate your insights, Jalen. Appreciate Cameron Mills for hopping on here with us, and had a lot of fun, man. Thanks again to JJ Sneed for subscribing. Y'all get yourselves a Cat Daddy shirt. Appreciate everybody that's taking time to watch, and we'll be back again next week doing this same kind of thing, man. This live stream thing is fun. I hope everybody enjoys it. We enjoy bringing it to you. Be back next week for another episode of Believe in Kentucky.